Okay, good afternoon everyone from here in the UK, and thank you for joining us. For those of you tuning in on the other side of the Atlantic, good morning. We've got retailers, brands and tech companies from across the globe signed up for today's webinar on what to expect when adding RFID to retail. In a minute, I am going to introduce you to our main speaker for today's webinar, Dean Frew from SML. But let me just take a moment to introduce myself as moderator and offer you a quick summary of where I'm from and why we're talking about this particular subject today. My name is Ben Silito, editor of Essential Retail Magazine. We're an online title covering all the latest news, features and interviews relating to the retail technology space. We keep track of the latest trends impacting our global industry and offer a wider view offer the wider retail sector news on what their peers are investing in and what impact those investments are having on their respective businesses. Alongside our annual expo and conference, RBTE, we are seeing RFID rising up the retail agenda. Over the last decade or so, we've seen a number of tipping points, if you like, where it looked as if RFID was going to be the answer to solve a lot of retailers' key challenges, but for whatever reason, widespread adoption has never quite materialized. But as Dean will discuss shortly, it looks as if the stars are now aligning in terms of RFID being able to solve various retailer pain points relating to a number of things, ranging from inventory management, single view of stock across multiple channels, and crucially, helping develop the appropriate customer experience. As the technology companies that exhibited as part of RBTE earlier this year in the RFID zone, which has been going for a number of years now, and as Tesco's Matt Newby and Marks & Spencer's Richard Jenkins discussed at the event itself as part of the conference session. I know some of you listening today were present, so you may well have seen them speak or visited some of the stands. But as you know from what they were saying, retailers often will discover unexpected benefits from investing in RFID too. I'm going to hand over to Dean now, so he can give you some real-life RFID case studies and provide the bigger picture. To everyone listening, please do engage with the discussion by typing your questions into the system as we go along. I will do my best at the end to ask them anonymously on your behalf in the Q&A once Dean's finished his presentation. But for now, over to you, Dean.
Great, appreciate that, Ben. Can everybody hear? Can you hear me okay? Ben, can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Can hear you loud and clear.
Great, terrific. I appreciate everybody joining us today. You know, one of the things that's exciting is to see the poll that we run kind of ahead of this. We've got about a quarter of the folks who've not done RFID before. We've got 15 to 20% that are starting, and then we've got well over a quarter that have put into the poll that they've been longtime users. So it's exciting to see where that's going. Appreciate the partnership with Essential Retail and RBTE, probably the premier provider of trade events inside Europe right now for RFID, and the RFID zone's been wildly successful. Clearly noted by the speakers that are brought in. Today I'm going to go over just a couple slides on who we are at SML, and then talk about what you should be expecting, talk about business cases, processes, and hidden traps. But the focus will be on, if you're an end user in the audience, which we have dozens of, that you'll hopefully come out of this with an idea of what you can gain from leveraging the technology to change the way you do business. First off, SML, a global technology provider, over 6,000 employees, began significant investment in RFID in 2010. Service bureaus and RFID manufacturing capabilities in 16 countries, the largest network of tag manufacturing and service bureaus in the world. Software solutions deployed in over 22 countries, and as you see down at the bottom, delivering tags and software solutions in the RFID retail space. Billion tags this year, and over 5 billion transactions will run on our software in retail stores and in distribution centers. Some of the most notable case studies that have become public are American Apparel, Tesco F&F, Tesco F&F is the clothing brand within the Tesco stores worldwide. They are a $3 billion apparel retailer and headquartered out of the UK, so significant retailer there, and we're very excited to be part of that project, providing software and tags there. And then Herman K, which is a good example of a brand owner leveraging the technology in their own supply chain to improve delivery accuracy to the retailers downstream for them. They own the brand for London Fog and also the licensee for Michael Kors, Polo, outerwear, etc. So real exciting to see what's going on, and these are great examples that hopefully apply to your business as well. The movement in the industry is larger than just wanting to manage inventory. It includes the 4 things that you see under Retail 3.0. This is the movement that's causing spend decisions, item level inventory management, omni-channel fulfillment, new customer experiences in their store, and then lastly is behavior monitoring, monitoring what the customer does in their buying behavior. RFID is fundamental to 3 of those and is tangential to the last one. So this is bigger and is a part of a new era in retailing, and we at SML are focused on the technology behind that. So let's talk about what you should expect with RFID. The first thing is inventory truth. What's great about RFID is you can't get a false positive, and meaning that you can't have a tag recorded that you did not read. So what ends up happening is you move away from speculation and guessing what your inventory is at the SKU level by being able to leverage the technology to get this accurate inventory data. And it's free. It's incredibly freeing when that takes place. Most of our customers move from somewhere around 75% inventory accuracy to well over 98%. Many are achieving over 99% inventory accuracy. And what that means is not just the count of items, but the SKUs themselves. With the information of the SKUs allows you to address your assortment, planning, and fulfillment much more effectively than what you could before when your inventory accuracy was low. The second thing is it really changes the way inventory management is done in the organization. It creates new best practices. In every customer that we have, once RFID is implemented, it changes the way they think about fulfillment. It changes moving from, as we say, a pull model moving from a push model to a pull model, meaning that the store itself drives signals back up the supply chain to drive efficient and effective fulfillment actions down to the store. The next thing it does is that you should expect that you get more out of your existing systems. In no case have we seen where RFID, when integrated with existing warehouse management or point of sale systems, do those systems not become more effective. It doesn't drive you to invest in new systems for the enterprise. It allows you to leverage what you have to be even better. It does require process change. Customers are demanding new levels of agility and new service levels, and what that does is, with this kind of information and with the new processes that you can implement, it allows you to adapt to what customers are looking for. And we see that across the board with all of our retail customers and brand owners, and that is that they are using the information to then service customers much more effectively. And if you look at the focus of Tesco's F&F rollout, their focus was on servicing customers better, and there are a lot of hard benefits that were provided along with that, but it does create these new service models. It does require you do get cultural change in the organization. You move from a responsive, more of a response to and reactive model to a data-centric based decision model. You can manage your business by fact now, and we are seeing that happening and pushing those decisions far down into the organization for the individuals and the associates that are actually touching the garment. Next is organizational resistance. You should expect that. Anything that is this disruptive and this change is hard, but it is needed for survival. And in all of the cases where implementations have been done, the embracing of the change for survival is really important, because if you see this as just another IT project, you probably won't leverage the technology to drive the biggest benefit. But where organizations are actually embracing this for survival, we see dramatic improvements on sales and inventory and so on. And that leads to my last point, which is proven business cases. In every case, we see sales lift. In every case, we see inventory reduction. And in every case, we are seeing effective omni-channel pick-from-store models that can be implemented using RFID. And again, it's more than just counting. It's using the technology, the investment of putting a RFID tag on every item to be able to drive change in the business processes in the store. So let me go into a couple of those. Let's talk about the processes. Again, the focus of RFID really is to take and make these retail processes that you live with every day and just improve them by using technology. We're not going to change the fact that you're going to need to receive orders, or the fact that you need to pick orders, or the fact that you need to ship orders in a factory. It's that we're making those more accurate and doing it more efficiently than what you do today. If you move on to the supply chain, every single pilot and rollout that we've done in the supply chain, the inbound shipments from the factory into the distribution center are woefully inaccurate. And what happens with that is then the inventory in the distribution center then is off from the very beginning. Thus, you have more inventory than you need, which then relates to other cost elements as you move forward. In a warehouse, we're seeing inbound receiving and audits being done. We're seeing pick auditing being done in the warehouse, omni-channel pick from store, and outbound shipment auditing. These aren't dreams and thoughts. These are actually being implemented today inside our customers. They've made the decision to implement RFID. It could be a mandate if they were a brand owner to a large retailer, or it could be a retailer who has just decided they're going to leverage the technology all the way through their supply chain. And we see this, there's lots of different forms for these processes to take place in a supply chain, but in all cases, this is either part of their roadmap or currently being implemented today in their supply chain. And then lastly is in the store. This is where the biggest value lever is for the organization. These are processes that are being implemented today using the technology. The store receiving, backstock, intelligent replenishment, I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Stock counting, omni-channel pick from store, stock inquiry, sales conversion, point of sale, and loss prevention. All of these are processes that today are trying to be implemented without good inventory and without good tools and technology to enable them more effectively and efficiently. With RFID, you can dramatically change the way you go about executing these processes. Let's talk about if we do kind of a what-if analysis. The first one is, what's the impact to your business if you could get rid of physical audits? We see that being done today. We have numerous customers who have just completely gotten rid of the physical audits of their inventory once or twice a year, and they're leveraging the inventory at the end of the year, and those are being used inside their financial audits for their balance sheet. What if you could move product and just bring it into the back of the store and be able to read those tags at over 90% accurate and have those moved into inventory automatically without a human in the loop? That's what's being done today at Tesco, for example, and being done across hundreds of stores simultaneously. What if you could download onto the handheld a list of items that you need to fill on your sales floor because you've got a merchandising plan, and you use the handheld terminal in the hands of the associate to go find those items in your backstock and pull those items very efficiently to the sales floor. That's what's being done today in hundreds of retail stores around the world using our technology. This is a dramatic change, and one of the things that builds, one of the soft benefits is builds significant ownership by the associates to using the technology and not wanting to let go of it. Most of the associates want technology to help them do their job better. They don't want to go back to paper list where they're searching through 30 or 40,000 items in a backstock for those items. Next is downloading a similar list, but this list would be a list for an omni-channel order. And so If someone ordered something online, you were able to, through your order management system, have access to the RFID data, be able to know that that item is actually in a store around the corner, and the customer has decided that they'd like to pick it up in store if available, dropping that order down into the software solution such that the associate can then go pick those items and put them aside in reserve status for the customer to come in and pick up. That's a technology that we currently have implemented, and we're real excited about that because it also applies for markdowns and transfers. That technology exists today, and we're quite excited about the implications of that in omni-channel fulfillment. We believe that's a differentiator today with our technology over our competitors. Next is a real-world situation. You have tags that are entering into your store that have not been, like in a tag-up environment, not been encoded correctly, and so on, and being able to find those. We have the capability of finding those items and helping you filter those out or re-encoding those tags. And while that percentage is relatively low, it might make the difference between 98.5% and 99% inventory accuracy. And just help you get a better view of your inventory. And next is reduce your point-of-sale process time. We have hundreds of stores around the world that are using our point-of-sale system, point-of-sale technology connected to their existing point-of-sale and till system, enable them to get rid of the barcode scanning at POS. And we continue to see the efficiency at checkout for many retailers is important, especially for fast fashion, but also just the technology feel that it gives customers to not have to still be doing barcoding, as we saw in one of my previous slides that goes back to 1980. And then last is in the supply chain side, guaranteeing 100% shipment accuracy to your downstream partner or customer. We are seeing the technology being used today on outbound audits to guarantee this 100%. There's so many examples today of we go into a supply chain environment and we see that literally we've had situations where the first box we tested was inaccurate, and they knew we were testing it with the technology. So this is a major problem, and it creates significant inventory distortion downstream. And so we're going to continue to see supply chain customers who want to implement this, either retailers to their own stores or brand owners downstream. Let's talk about some case studies. Let's specifically talk about pain points, the way we think about things, and I think it's a healthy thing for the industry to continue to evolve to, is let's think in the mind of the end user. And as I mentioned, we've got dozens of end users on this call, and I hope that you can relate to some of the things we're about to talk about, because the way we came up with this, these pain points, was frankly talking to hundreds of customers and listening to the problems that they have, and then for us, it's our job to bring the technology, both tags and software, to help address those problems. One of those is the need to encode tags close to their factories. The cost and speed of being able to ship from a single location in country and absorbing duties and so on like that is something that can directly impact the business case itself, as well as brand owners, sourcing managers, et cetera, want agility. They want the ability to print and have a partner like SML print and encode tags in country and deliver those down the road within a few days. And we've put in place a network to be able to do that better than anyone else in the world today with our large service bureau network. The next is inaccurate stock count. We've talked about manual counting is inaccurate. You're only able to do it 1 or 2 times a year. As I mentioned, over 98% inventory accuracy. The counts are so easy. We have one customer who's doing 4 counts a week, and we have one customer that is doing it once a week. We have others that are, most are doing once a week. But it's so easy, especially for retailers that have less than 100,000 items in their store. We have retailers that have 100 to 120,000 items in the store, and they're doing a cycle count once a week. And it's so easy, and again, if the technology scales, it enables you to be able to do that at the same time, which gives you a picture of inventory across your entire network of stores that's synced up. That's one of the challenges of some technology out there, is it doesn't enable that kind of sync across your entire network by getting you on the same cycle count schedule. So I'll talk about some of the lessons learned, but you know, this is very easy to do. It takes literally less than 15 minutes for an associate to learn how to do a count and to be able to compare that to what they should, to make sure that we provide a feedback mechanism to make sure that they're able to complete the count accurately and that they didn't leave out a rounder or a rack. Next is just the third-party audits. Everybody knows that this is inevitable. It doesn't have to be. Again, we have multiple customers who have eliminated this in their business plan and business case by being able to use the RFID data that was read at the end of their fiscal year. So it's not a trivial savings. I mean, in some cases, it can represent 30% of the cost of the entire implementation by just getting rid of this cost. And one that's a really easy one to get rid of, because the inventory accuracy is usually significantly better than what you do with a physical count. Lost sales. Most deployments that we see are above 5%. We're comfortably saying above 3% is what everyone should see. Even those that are in the luxury brands, which we have a couple of those on the call, we do see an out-of-stock situation that has, and do see those where they're causing lost sales because of out-of-stocks. It's not uncommon for us to see our out-of-stock levels from our customers using the technologies to be less than 2%. And again, what ends up happening over time is they continue to adjust their merchandising plan and fulfillment from the DC to make sure that the right product is in the store that they want to sell, not just a bunch of excess product that's not desired on the floor. And that's usually the biggest issue. Next, we see omnichannel fears. This is probably one of the biggest things that we're seeing in the industry today, and that is the desire to use the inventory that's distributed across your stores to fulfill online orders, and also to bring people into your stores to increase their basket size. And RFID is being used today, but with some of the omnichannel is being used today, but with some of the ratios that customers are implementing to make this work, where if they have 5 of an item, then they might allow the order to be picked from store because they know their inventory accuracy is so bad. And what we're moving to, and what we're seeing our customers moving to, is pick to the last item for omnichannel. I think it's realistic to think that most customers could get to a 2-to-1, which means if you have 2 of them being registered through your RFID system, that you would have a high level of confidence to pick one of those and leave one left in the store for replenishment later. So real exciting to see what's going on in the innovation that's taking place with our customers using the technology in their stores. We're going to continue to see this evolve. Bloated inventories. Every single customer who's implemented in production has reduced their inventory in their supply chain, which includes their stores, by more than 10%. A good example of that is when we started with American Apparel, they operated on about 22 million items of inventory a year and roughly 600 million in sales. They've been able to reduce their inventory down to 15 million. Some of that is, at the same time, they've increased their SKUs by 30%. So increased their SKUs by 30%, their inventory was reduced by over 20%, and their sales basically stayed the same. So, you know, and we've other customers that have done something very similar. And you know, this is the one that it takes a little time to get this going, but once the system gets in place and the supply chain experts start looking at how to balance inventory, it happens in every single case. They realize that they have excess inventory, they have just-in-case inventory, and they reduce that. And if you can imagine going to your CFO and showing them that he or her that you could get rid of 10% of inventory in your supply chain, shrinking that overall pie by 10%, you probably get a free pizza out of that for sure. It's a great opportunity to bring value to the enterprise. Poor customer satisfaction. Customers come in, they don't have what they want, thus they leave dissatisfied and frankly have a bad view of the brand itself. the out-of-stock situation and the ability to, again, improve their experience in the store really drives improvement there. Store ops is looking for help. They're looking for tools in at least our experience that can be data-driven to help them increase their sales, to make sure they have the right product on the floor at the right time. And these RFID systems that we're deploying are really enabling that. The store ops team becomes one of the biggest champions of the technology going forward because they see it helps them do their business and helps them on their store sales platform and reducing their overall cost and efficiency of labor as well. Lack of analytics. I mean, RFID, while it's a great tool to drive execution and inventory implementation, it also is a metric. You're able to measure a lot of the activity that's going on in your store and your business processes because you're using these little sensors on every item to monitor processes. And we're seeing more and more customers who are embracing that and even pulling the data in themselves and analyzing it on how to improve their processes and look at their customer behavior. Many customers are viewing that they're not leveraging the technology efficiently. They are a boring and inefficient retailer. So we're seeing some customers who are using this as a brand building tool to show that they've got the technology they need to really present their brand as somebody who's on the cutting edge and really focus on servicing them better. Let me give you an example real quick. This is, again, an example of a single store. It's showing what happens when you move to a pull model from a push model. Again, a push model is the DC decides what needs to get pushed to the store because the store inventory is so bad, they're just pushing product down based on merchandising plans. We have numerous retailers that have moved to a pull model where basically the RFID system is updating the inventory system of record, and then the algorithm to push product into the store dramatically changes. And so what you see here is the blue bar is the backstock inventory, the orange bar is the sales floor inventory, and then you see your out-of-stock level. So in week 1, implementation of RFID takes place, and what we see very little change to inventory before, but we do see an out-of-stock reduction. So we see some increased sales specifically on those fast-moving items, and so there's a lift immediately. And usually this is what takes place during a pilot where we're not integrated with the enterprise system. As soon as the system, we integrate with the system of record and we start driving replenishment changes, what we see is the out-of-stock levels go down even further, but most importantly, we see the backstock inventory drop by 10%. I'm sorry, by 50%. So it drops from 20,000 items in this model down to 10. It becomes much more efficient to run the store, and the customers are happy. It clears up a lot of clutter in the store, and frankly, think of the labor is now focused on helping customers buy product rather than searching for product in the back and through this 20,000 garments that are in the back of the store. Very exciting, very common today when we build in integration into the overall strategy. Next, I'll show you this is just a little cartoon on what happens for omnichannel. There are 2 problems today. One is there is inventory that you don't know you have. So you have understated your inventory in certain SKUs. And the bottom one, which is the B category, are things you think you have, but you don't. So you've overstated your inventory. In both cases, there is disappointment. The top one is sad CFO, because you've got product that you don't know you sell, so that usually means you're pushing more product to the store. The bottom one is the sad customer, because the customer now thinks, and you think you have the product, but you don't. And so when you go to look to pick from it, it's not there. What ends up happening in both cases is you bloat your inventory in the store, but in both cases you end up having stakeholders that are sad and disappointed in the process. Let's talk about some of the hidden traps and lessons learned. So we've walked through kind of the process. We've walked through pain points with the customer, with customers and end users. Let's talk about some of the hidden traps that we've seen in the industry today. And I'll wrap up with this. First off is build a business case based on proven results, include all the costs. We see numerous customers who have gone down the path of taking and working with someone who's never really implemented RFID to do a business case. And what ends up happening is one, they don't know what the real benefits are. They've assumed them. And number two, they also don't incorporate all the costs. And so what ends up taking place is a distorted view of what an implementation needs to be. Next is cross-functional teams. 100% of the successful projects in the world today, whether we're the primary on it or one of our competitors are, is a cross-functional team. The customer themselves brings in sourcing, they bring in merchandise, store ops, IT, supply chain, and it's worked as a system. And that's essential for the successful projects that we've seen implemented around the world today, including ours. Next is smart integration. No project has been successful in the world without integration. That is a definitive statement. Many customers end users have tried to do this without integrating with their IT systems, and they have been, many of which have been terrible failures. And a lot of money was invested because it seemed easier to do it this way, but the benefits were just not there on the back end. Smart integration doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to, you're not opening up your ERP system in many cases to be able to take advantage of this. What we continue to see is very simple, straightforward technology, sitting across the table with our clients, looking at what data needs to come back and forth, how to maximize the value for that. Next is source tagging strategy. No project's been successful by tagging up in the distribution center. It all has to go to source tagging, and there's two components of that. The first one is where are you going to tag, and what's the most cost-effective way of doing that? I've mentioned our service bureau strategy. We also have implemented printing strategy. We've seen both of those implemented, but by far the service bureau strategy in the 16 countries around the world has been the one that's been adopted the largest, and I would say probably 98% of those 1 billion tags this year will run through our service bureaus. The second part is the form factor of the RFID tag itself. Is it a simple label, white paper sticker, adhesive label, or is it a 6-color offset integrated tag? Those things are the things that we continue to see customers. There is not one answer. It's what makes the most sense to drive your ROI. And again, addressing that in the beginning of the process so that you can drive your business case. There's a difference in cost between a white adhesive label that's going to be run through a thermal printer and a 6-color offset integrated ticket. Neither one is right or wrong. They just depend on what you're trying to look for your brand and what you're trying to do as far as your ROI. We have put in place significant investment to be able to address that entire spectrum and to do that around the world. So again, successful projects in the world are addressing it this way. Next is matching the technology footprint to support the desired ROI. Where customers have found success is to focus on the ROI and then have the technology footprint feed that, not the other way around. Some customers that we've seen have implemented way too much technology, and so the ROI just can't overcome, the benefits can't overcome the cost of the technology, and so the project stalls. We see numerous customers who are starting out with maybe handhelds and then migrating to additional read points of point of sale and transition throughout the life cycle of their, kind of this journey that they're on. That's what we encourage. That's what we see customers focused on that are successful. We'd encourage that as well. Next, focus on technology that scales. The technology to be able to do a pilot of one store is one thing, but how do you deploy the technology so that you can do 600 to 1,000 stores cycle counting at the same time with 50,000 items in the store? You want to provide yourself technology that scales so that you can have the most flexibility on your operational processes and you aren't limiting your operation using the technology by what technology choices you picked. And I would also say pick technology that's got a track record. I think some of the challenges that we're seeing today is customers picking some of the technology that's brand new, and they're having to really help the vendors burn in those pieces of hardware or software, and that stalls some of the rollout and the benefit creation. Next is process change. Bring process people. The teams that bring process people into onto the team initially are the ones who are able to gain. We see gaining the most value because they're able to think process and how to use the technology to change the way they do business and improve the way they do business from the onset, rather than IT or other departments that are more focused on the technology in a standalone mode. Next is staging the rollout. I would say all successful projects that we've seen have started out in stages. They get it right in 50 stores, and then they blow it out to all their stores. I don't believe there's a successful rollout where they tried to do all 1,000 stores at the same time. While it looks like it's more efficient, in reality, it's really painful to get 1,000 stores live with software that has to change, and the training to do that and so on. So again, I think the folks at Tesco and American Apparel have both done a marvelous job of going through the coaching process of building coaches and then rolling out in waves. We've seen that be extremely successful. It also builds momentum in the organization because the stores that have the technology are there to propel the technology and the benefits of it to those that are getting ready to get it. So encourage that a lot. And lastly is focus on the inventory management pain points first. While there are other things that we have on our roadmap that we're currently developing and maybe even testing, like customer experience, like brand authentication, there's plenty of what we think of as low-hanging fruit on the inventory side to help pay for the getting tags on your product. Focus there first, and then add to it is a recommendation we would see. I think that there are numerous customers who have gone down the path of looking at customer experience first. It's very difficult to generate the ROI to convince the CFO to add the cost of tags onto the garments. So anyway, I hope this was helpful. I'm going to turn it over to Ben now to do questions. It looks like we've got a significant number of questions out there. I'll turn it over. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean, for a very insightful presentation there. Now, guys, I believe there was a bit of a sound issue at the beginning, so you might not have heard my introduction. I'm not going to do the whole introduction right at the end, obviously, but I think if you get this link sent to you afterwards, the sound should be fine and the intro should be involved. But the crux of my introduction was that, and why we're talking about RFID today, is kind of over the last decade or so, we've seen a number of tipping points where it looked as if RFID was going to be the answer to lots of retailers' multiple issues and challenges. And for whatever reason, it never quite got widely adopted. But I think, as Dean's explained in his very eloquent presentation today, there are a number of reasons why RFID is something that retailers and end users should now be looking at. A lot of the consultants that I talk to, because RFID has looked like it's emerging and then it's not, and then it's looked like it's emerging and then it's not, they're a little bit skeptical about RFID as a technology. They think we've been here before, why is now different? But I think Dean has underlined a number of areas why the situation is now different, and perhaps it's worth highlighting again, Dean. What would you say to the skeptics? Why is now a really good time to be investing in RFID? What stars are aligning to make sure to make it a worthwhile investment?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the reality is that if you just step back and you say that most retailers are running their business with somewhere between a 25 and a 20% inventory error at any one time. If you can fix that, and if you can use that increased inventory accuracy and increased inventory accuracy to drive changes in how you manage inventory and how you serve customers, the benefit is there. And that's what we continue to see, is we continue to see just that. It's not that hard. It's really pretty pragmatic. How, if we can increase our inventory accuracy, there is benefit there, and there's benefit with an ROI that in all cases that we've done, we have an ROI model that we run that we continue to grow, but in all cases we see a payback, including tags, including software, including hardware, including services, of less than 12 months with different scenarios, different technology profiles. So this is really, it's not that hard. It's new, and I think that's what people think. And it's one of the barriers for them, is they see this as being new, and it is. You're dealing with physics instead of line of sight. But if you just step back and you see it as just another tool to help you run your business, and when retailers do that, they sit back and they say, we've got to do this to survive. The days of living with that kind of inventory inaccuracy in the store because of the churn that takes place in a retail store is just not going to be acceptable. And that's why we see, the market today is about 6% penetrated in U.S. and Europe, and there's a long way to go. And what we're seeing is that growing at about a 50% rate every year, and we expect that to increase over time.
Yeah, there really is huge potential for this technology, and from an editorial perspective, we've been covering a lot of stories, writing a lot of features on retailers getting a lot of success out of deploying RFID. Increasingly, it seems that some of the major players in the industry across the world are looking at the technology and seeing it as a way forward, and seeing it as a way of solving lots of their pain points, as you've underlined in your presentation, Dean. We also run a huge exhibition every year, RBTE, where the RFID section of that particular event has grown and grown over the last 3 years. We've had loads and loads of conference sessions on RFID that are very well attended. Audience seems very, very much engaged. There seems to be a real thirst for information, knowledge, direction in terms of how to deploy RFID. I'm just wondering, from your own company's perspective, what demand are you experiencing from retailers at the moment? How much do you think it's now on the wider industry's agenda?
Yeah, that's a good question. What we're seeing is we're seeing about a 50% increase overall in the number of companies that are interested. But what's most important to that is we're seeing the vertically integrated retailers and the fast fashion but vertically integrated retailers, the ones that own their own brand in stores, are the ones that are moving the fastest. And then, frankly, they're the ones who are coming to the market the quickest because they have the most to benefit, and they also control their supply chain. And so when you look at that, you can get your head wrapped around an ROI relatively simply because they're controlling the factories, their products are being built for them. And what we're seeing is across the U.S. and Europe, that segment of the market, which is those that have somewhere between 50 and 700 stores, they're vertically integrated. They're the ones that are moving into the market the fastest. They tend to have a team that's relatively focused and agile, and they're coming to the market extremely aggressively to say, we want to find out about this. We think this could be a potential advantage to us competitively, and everybody's trying to increase their profitability and fight for the customer's basket. And they also are the ones who are most interested in implementing an omnichannel strategy and are finding it difficult because of their inventory accuracy problems they have in their stores. And frankly, that's one of the things that's one of the biggest hurdles right now is we just did this poll during this webinar, and the number one item that was listed about why a hurdle for adoption is they're skeptical of the ROI. That was over 40% of that. 40% of the respondents said they're skeptical of the ROI and the benefits. One thing I would say to that is, in every single case that we've come across, the RFID during the pilot creates an enormous amount of disruption in the organization. Because once you use RFID to really determine what your inventory accuracy is, there's a lot of skepticism about if that's really accurate or not. But once you dig into it and you see that it is, you can see that fundamentally there is an issue that needs to be addressed, and that's the inventory accuracy problem. So anyway, it's exciting to see that segment grow. We are seeing some department stores and general merchandisers coming. I would also tell you that there are other segments of the business that are coming. Cosmetics and fragrance. We'll be announcing a large rollout with the cell phone customer soon. We're seeing things in other retail segments that are adopting the technology as well. So while this has been focused on apparel and footwear, we're going to see probably by this time next year we'll be talking about 5 or 6 other retail segments that are looking at RFID and looking at the fact that that you can generate very quick time and looking at the cost and time it takes to get to an ROI and seeing that to be attractive, and they'll make the decision to go forward.
Okay. Now, interesting results in the poll there. Hopefully what you've discussed today, Dean, has helped clear the picture and provide a bit more food for thought for retailers and end users. One of the things that I've come across covering RFID and retail technology and the retail industry in general recently is what technology can do for a retailer's people. You briefly mentioned it on one of your slides, and at our event, RBTE in March. Tesco's Matt Newby mentioned it. He did a presentation alongside Marks and Spencer's Richard Jenkins, but basically it was by using RFID technology for stock counting. It gave Tesco F&F an opportunity to deploy its staff in more customer-facing roles. So the kind of administrative processes were automated, and staff were able to be deployed elsewhere for more customer engagement, that kind of thing. Just interested in your opinion on that piece.
Yeah, absolutely. Most of the retailers that we deal with, the backstock operators and associates are the ones who are pulling product usually to fill the slots on the floor. And they have a really tough job. They're basically told to find a needle in a haystack and pull it to the floor and do that on a basis that's largely a manual process. So you build an enormous amount of loyalty with those operators in the stores themselves because they don't want to go back. I mean, I literally have been on reference tours with customers into some of our other customers where the associate will say, I quit the company if they move me back to a paper system. Sales associates love it because they basically are finding that the overall basket of the customer is going up because they have because the product is there on the sales floor that they need, so their numbers are going up. So in general, this isn't a burden for them. They're seeing it as a tool to help them service customers better.
Sure. And in this day and age, the customer experience is pretty much top of every boardroom agenda, isn't it? It's a crucial thing to consider. We've had a question pop up from the listeners. Maybe a bit of a tricky one for you, Dean. Interested to hear you answer this one. Find out what your view is. Obviously, keeping all the questions anonymous, and I haven't checked these stats myself, but GS1 in the US, the standards, supply chain standards organization, has published survey stats that US apparel retailers have on average 47% of items received with RFID tags. Why isn't RFID penetration higher than 6%? What would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the surveys that were done were largely of department stores in the U.S. and I think they weren't of, if you look at the market represents about 30% of stores in the U.S. are department stores or general merchandisers. 70% are made up of vertically integrated retailers, and I think GS1 will even tell you that they don't have the same penetration in their survey results for that they do for some of the merchandisers. I can tell you just, from our standpoint, what we're seeing is we're seeing that segment of the market that's growing is going to grow quickly. And it's, this is a change. I mean, you think about it. This goes all the way back to the factory in Vietnam. And so that's why finding someone who can help you with the factory in Vietnam all the way to what you're going to do at your point of sale is one of the things that we're trying to bring to the market today. And what we're seeing is we're seeing, more and more retailers are elevating this item level inventory management, or RFID, higher on their priority list, and we're going to continue to see that happen over time.
No, appreciate that commentary, Dean. I'm conscious of time. We've got a few minutes left before I think we're going to sign off. But I've got a few questions, a couple more questions that I think will underline the message that this particular presentation was trying to convey today. At RBTE, M&S's Richard Jenkins suggested that in RFID, completeness is a prize. So tagging everything in their GM inventory, or making sure that there aren't any gaps, is a prize in itself. Do you want to just suggest, kind of back him up and support him in that, or perhaps suggest why he may have said that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good comment, and it's a comment that I think it's a position that's held by most of those customers that have been successful in the market. The Decathlon, Marks and Spencer, Tesco, American Apparel, Zara, Inditex, that whole constellation. Those that have tagged, that hold to the same philosophy that Richard shared, are the ones that frankly see in the most value, because then you have one inventory management process across your entire chain in your store. And again, why is it easier for a vertically integrated retailer to do that? Because they might only have 40,000, 50, 60,000 items in a store at one time. And so I think those things are going together, but I completely concur with him that, and I think the evidence plays it out, that those that have tagged most of their product and are leveraging this as a true new way of doing business are finding the most value.
Indeed. And yeah, growing momentum around RFID. I've got one more question before I wrap up, Dean.
Yep.
You've given a good bit of advice. You've offered a good bit of advice in your presentation. We've gone through a lot very, very quickly. But in terms of the listeners that we've got on the webinar today, and they're going to be going away talking to their teams about what they've heard, they've got some food for thought in terms of RFID investment now. What would you say to the retailers and brands that are thinking of investing in RFID? How can they quickly test the waters? What would be your advice in terms of initial deployment?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is talk to people who have done it. Find some both brand owners, find both end users, retailers, brand owners, and technology providers that have actually done it. There's not an example in the market today where somebody has learned and done this the first time and been successful. So focus on those that have done it. Learn from, I think you'd find that most of the retailers that are out there that have done this are willing to talk to others about it. I know that some of the things that both Matt Newby at Tesco and Richard Jenkins at Marks and Spencer have done is they're wanting to share that information. So, but focus on finding people who have done it would be my one thing.
Okay. Yeah. Nothing speaks louder than a successful case study, does it?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that one of the things I was just going to say is that we're recording this presentation. It'll be available at the end of the day on our website, sml-rfid.com. I wanted to mention that before you signed off, Ben. I really appreciate your partnership, and thanks for all those who joined. I'll let you close it up.
Thank you, Dean. Thank you, Dean. No, appreciate your commentary today. Really insightful. Thanks, Dean and SML. That's pretty much it for this afternoon or this morning if you're listening in the US. Hopefully you've enjoyed the discussion. As Dean said, the link is now on your screens, but that will be available on the SML website, and Essential Retail will be putting out a story tomorrow based on these discussions. Please share what you've heard today with your colleagues. Go away and chat about it with your teams. If you've got any questions, I'm sure Dean will be available to answer them, Dean and the SML team. If you want to get in touch with Essential Retail as well to find out a bit more about our magazine, we're on essentialretail.com. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at bsilito. So if you want to connect there, we're constantly writing about RFID and the wider retail technology landscape, and I'm sure you'll find some interesting nuggets of information on there. I hope you do anyway. But that's pretty much it from me. And once again, thank you, Dean and SML. We appreciate your time today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.